Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a review demo for some impression swatches on the new Sephora Pro Pigment eyeshadow palettes. I did get all three just because I wanted to review them on my channel for you guys, but specifically for today's look, I did focus on the warm tone one just because you guys know I love my warm tones, and I feel like warm tone shades are like one of the most popular shades that people go to a lot. So I did make this eye look that I'm wearing today with these colors in here, but I am going to be playing around with these other two in an upcoming video. I'm going to be doing a one brand tutorial with the Sephora collection, and I will be featuring those two in here, but I did show you guys swatches and stuff as well of these palettes, and then towards the end of the video I let you guys know if I think they're worth it or not. So I hope you enjoy, hopefully it is helpful, and let's just go ahead and get on with the swatches and eyeshadow look. So let's just open everything up. I had to take my big earrings off because they were bugging me. So let's start off and just open these babies up, and then I'll do the swatches and everything. I did open them just to make sure that they weren't broken when they first came in the mail, but I have not swatched them. And let me just say that these are heavy. Like, they literally feel super heavy. But just to start off with the packaging itself on the outside, I think it's really nice. It's just matte black, and it just says Sephora Pro right on the front, and I like it. I mean, I think the packaging is gorgeous. Then on the inside you do get like a little booklet with like different looks that you could do, which I think is good like for beginners, or if you're like a makeup artist and you want to like maybe get inspired by new looks. You get a huge mirror in here, which I think is a plus, especially for if you're a YouTuber. I think that's really helpful because like for me, whenever I'm doing my makeup on camera, I like to have a mirror right here with me while I'm doing it. And then you also get this little plastic with all the names. I actually wish the names were on the palette. I think it's a very expensive palette for a Sephora collection brand that I think the names should have been on there. That's just my personal opinion. I know the names aren't really a big deal to a lot of people, but whenever I'm doing makeup tutorials and stuff, I think it is very helpful to have the name. So that's kind of like a downside. I know you could just keep the plastic over top and just keep the name, but I feel like the plastic over top can get a little bit annoying. I probably will keep it just to protect the shadows, but that's just me being picky. But the first thing that I actually thought of when I saw these palettes, they reminded me so much of the Morphe 17B and 17A palettes. Let me just grab them for you. Obviously the color scheme is very different between the Morphe palettes and these, but the actual like shapes of the eyeshadows and just the look of the palette reminded me so much of these. These retail for $18 on Morphe's website. I'm not a Morphe affiliate or anything. I do really like these eyeshadows. I think that they're better in my opinion than the other palettes that they have, like the 350, the 35B. I think they're more pigmented and better quality. So these Sephora Pro palettes definitely do remind me of them. So let's just go ahead and swatch. I'm going to start off with the first row, and then I'm just going to go down and just do the arm swatches by rows. So just swatching them with my finger, honestly, they feel very powdery, and they actually don't feel super creamy and soft, like just swatching them with my finger. Like, especially the mattes, they are definitely powdery. And just by me dipping my finger into the palette, I do get a lot of kickback fallout from the eyeshadows, so you can tell that they are very powdery. They're pigmented, but you do have to, you know, dig your finger in. It's not just going to be like one swipe and you get a lot of pigment. I'm going to do a couple brush swatches as well, just so you guys can see how the eyeshadow pigment is. It's decent. It's not amazing, but it's decent and it works. Brush swatches are actually not bad at all. They're actually showing up, but again, you do get a ton of fallout. Let me just show you up close. You can see you do get fallout just from dipping your finger or your brush into the palette. The shimmers are really pretty. They do feel a little bit softer than the mattes in my personal opinion. Again, you do still get that fallout, so that's just something to keep in mind. You know, whenever you have an eyeshadow palette, for me personally, that's not a big deal. I know a lot of people don't like that. I noticed that that happens with a lot of my shadows, so again, it's not like the biggest thing for me. So I did want to do a comparison with the Morphe eyeshadows versus the Sephora Pro eyeshadows. Now, obviously, like I said, the colors are totally different. I'm not saying that they're dupes, but I'm saying that they could be dupes formula-wise. So just touching them, honestly, the Sephora and the Morphe ones feel the same in my personal opinion. They don't feel like they have a huge difference. I will say that the shimmers feel the same in both palettes. The mattes in the Morphe palette feel a little bit more dry than the Sephora one. They are a little bit more patchy. Let's go ahead and move into the editorial palette. This one has really bold colors. I plan on doing a one brand tutorial using all Sephora collection makeup, and I do want to use this palette because I'm so neutral with my looks, and a lot of you guys always tell me, but I'm going to be doing some color very soon. But I just wanted a palette like this to have in my collection because I actually don't have a palette with all colorful shadows like this. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and start swatching within the first row, and then I'll move into the other rows. Oh, these are really, really pretty. Okay, honestly, just by swatching the first row in this palette, I feel like it's more pigmented than the warm shadows. With the brush swatches, these are a little bit chalky in my opinion and a little bit patchy. So just keep that in mind, that obviously with your finger, when you're digging into an eyeshadow, it's going to be more pigmented and just more vibrant. But with a brush, you can see that it's not as vibrant. Really excited about these bright colors. They look absolutely stunning. It literally looks like an art palette, which I really like. Those mattes are actually really, really nice and vibrant, which I really like. Again, let's do some brush swatches. I feel like it's kind of hit or miss. Some of the colors are more pigmented and vibrant with a brush versus others in the palette, but they are actually showing up, which I'm really impressed with. Let's do the shimmers because I'm really excited about them. They seem really, really glittery, almost like they're like a pressed pigment. Ooh, just watching them with my finger, you can kind of see that they're almost like a duochrome, which I think is absolutely stunning. Using a brush, like I said, it can be hit or miss. Some are more pigmented than others. I feel like you definitely are going to have to build them up and definitely pack on the color to get them to be as vibrant as possible. And last but not least, we have the Cool Tone palette. This one is really interesting. I've never really seen a cool tone palette like this. It has a lot of pinks and purples and just really pretty colors. I feel like this is a more, in my opinion, like a wintry palette. I think it's going to be really fun to play with this year. So let's go ahead and swatch these. Some of the eyeshadows seem a little bit more rough than others. So I feel like overall, some shadows are going to be better than others, like I mentioned. I think the pinks in here are really, really pretty. I do wish they had a little bit more bold colors. With a brush, some of them do seem very, very pigmented though, and really, really pretty. But again, some of them seem more pigmented than others just by doing brush swatches and just finger swatches as well. Some are definitely not as vibrant and pigmented and like opaque as some of the other colors in here. And let's swatch this black because I'm always a big fan of black eyeshadow palettes. I will say that that is a really, really nice black in the palette. I think a lot of palettes tend to have like a black, but it almost is like a gray black. And swatching it with a brush, you can see it's not as pigmented as with your finger. It is a little bit more chalky, but it is definitely black. It's not like a gray black, which I really do appreciate. I'm going to be using the warm tone palette for today's look. I'm going to just start off with my favorite eyeshadow base. This is the NYX eyeshadow base in the shade Skin Tone. I absolutely love this one. I think it's just really great for helping your eyeshadow to stay and last all day. It reminds me so much of the MAC Paint Pot. So if you like that formula, you're going to really like this as well. I'm just going to prime my lids. I always prime my eyes. You can use concealer as well if you don't have like a specific eyeshadow primer, but I always have to prime. I'm going to be using the cream color right at the top just to go ahead and set all over my lid. I always like to set my primer. Okay, so this color is really pigmented. I really love when eyeshadow palettes have like a nice cream base. I think it's like perfect. I'm going to start off with a soft brown color right on the end. And I'm just going to be using a Live and Breathe Beauty Just Blending Brush, which you can find at Walmart, just to blend that right into my crease. I don't really know what kind of look I'm going to do today, but we're just going to go with the flow. So it's definitely pigmented, the eyeshadow, but there's just so much like fallout when you dip your brush into the palette. There's like a ton. A lot of my shadows do that, but I feel like this one does it like excessively. I'm going to use this like saddle red brick color, and I'm going to be taking my Morphe M573, and I'm just going to be applying that right on the outer part of my crease. Whoa, that's pigmented. I'm using a flat shader brush. This one is from Vanity Planet, and I'm just going to be using that gorgeous like cranberry shimmer shade. I'm going to be applying this all over my lid. Oh, okay, it's actually showing up. I'm going to go ahead and dip back into the eyeshadow, and then I'm actually going to be using my NYX First Base Primer Spray just to spray the brush to see like the vibrancy of it with a setting spray. Ooh, Ooh, it's definitely a little bit more of like a brighter color when you spray your brush, which I usually always do that with all my eyeshadows. Okay, this look is definitely more like pink and vibrant than I expected, but let's just go with the flow. On a different flatter brush from Vanity Planet as well, I'm just going to take that pinky color right next to it. I'm going to just add that right to the center because I want to see if it like really shows up or like does anything to this look. Picking up a Morphe M513 brush, I'm just going to be using a little bit more of this orange color just to kind of warm up the crease. Warming up the crease. That doesn't even make sense, Jasmine. Get it together. I'm going to be highlighting my brow bone with the cream shade right at the top. I'm just adding a little bit more of that pink right on the lid because I feel like blending out the shadows over top, I kind of lost the shade. I guess since we're here, I'm just going to finish up the rest of the eyes on camera. I'm just going to be using the Maybelline Curvitude eyeliner. This one's just in the shade black, and I'm just going to do a wing. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish up the rest of my makeup, and then I will be right back and give you guys my final thoughts on these palettes. Alright guys, so I finished up the rest of my makeup. If you're interested in this whole look, I will leave everything in the description box below. I really wanted to focus today's video pretty much on just the eyeshadow palettes and the eyeshadow itself. That's why I didn't include the full face. So check down below if you care. So let's just move into the final review and thoughts on this eyeshadow palette and the other palettes as well. So as you guys saw, obviously I did use the warm tone palette, and I honestly really liked it on my eyes more so than swatching them. When I swatch these eyeshadows, they seem, some of them more pigmented than others, they seemed a little chalky, but actually applying them to the eyes, I feel like the blendability is just insane. They're super creamy, they're very easy to blend, and I feel like even layering shadows over top, they just work really well. So I really like this look. It's a little bit different than anything that I normally do because it's like with pink. I will say that there are a few cons to this palette. So the first con that I will say about this palette is that I wish that there were a little bit more metallic, like shimmery colors in here. There's only 7 out of all 28 colors. I do think that's very little. I wish there was at least like 10 or 11, but that's just me being picky. The shades that are in here, they are really nice, like the shimmers and like the metallic colors. My second con is that this pink color right here is like barely noticeable applying it to the lid. I did try and add it a little bit over top for like a little bit of a pop, and it was barely visible, so that is kind of a downside to the palette, that this shade is so pretty but it's barely visible. And another con is that there's a ton of kickback. So when you're dipping your brush in here or you're dipping your finger, you can just see all the powder residue from the eyeshadow. So if that drives you insane, you are not going to like this palette. Just comparing it to the Morphe and the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette, you can see that the Sephora Pro palette just like is 10 times more powdery than those other two palettes. So just to give you a little bit of an insight on that. But all in all, I do think it's worth it because you do get so many eyeshadows for $68. I know that is expensive, but the overall quality is so much better on the eyes. The packaging is really nice. You get a huge mirror. It feels like a luxurious palette on the eyes, more so, like I said, than just swatching them. So don't be fooled by the swatches, because I think actually applying them, they apply 10 times better than just applying them on your arm, you know? I did think for a second that they were comparable to these Morphe palettes, but I love these Morphe palettes for the price, but I do feel like the Sephora Pro palettes blend a little bit better on the eyes, and they're a little bit more vibrant than these Morphe palettes. Again, you get what you pay for, so yeah. I obviously did not play with the editorial and the cool toned palettes. I will be playing with these in my one brand tutorial coming up within the next week or so. You guys will definitely see that very soon on my channel. I'm just waiting for my things to arrive, and I will play with those other 2 palettes, and I'll let you guys know what I think about those as well. If you have 1,000,001 eyeshadows in your collection that are a warm tone, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Absolutely not. But if you like to play with makeup, if you're a makeup lover and you just want another warm tone palette in your collection, I do think it's worth it overall. Maybe if you want like a all warm tone palette and you don't have one already, I do think it's worth it because you get so many shades and they're pigmented, they work really well. Obviously I didn't play with all of them, but from what I did play with, I really like the palette so far. So yeah, that does complete this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it was a little bit helpful for some of you guys out there. Let me know what you think down below, and let me know what your thoughts are on these palettes if you do have them in your collection. So thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you in a few days in my next video. Bye!